She was sentenced to 10 years of hard labor, faced down a notorious warlord, and inherited a nation with no electricity, no running water, and 85% unemployment. This is the story of how Africa's first elected female president took charge of a failed state and stared into the abyss. But the most shocking part of her story is what happened right after she won the Nobel Peace Prize. To the world, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf is an icon, the Liberian Iron Lady for Peace, a Harvard-educated economist, a Nobel laureate, Africa's Iron Lady. But to many in her own country of Liberia, her legacy is a complex and painful story of compromise, controversy, and unfulfilled promises. She took a country utterly destroyed by 14 years of brutal civil war and brought it back from the dead. But in the process, did she sacrifice her own ideals? This isn't the simple, heroic story you've heard on the news. This is the story of what it truly costs to rebuild a nation from ashes, and the dark compromises leaders must make when there are no good choices left. In the next few moments, I am going to reveal the one decision Ellen Johnson Sirleaf made that led Liberia's own Truth and Reconciliation Commission to recommend she be banned from public office for 30 years. It's a part of her history that is almost always erased from her heroic narrative, and it's the key to understanding her entire presidency. Born in 1938, Ellen Johnson was a child of two worlds. Her father was the first indigenous Liberian to serve in the national legislature. But her mother came from the Americo-Liberian elite, the descendants of freed American slaves who had ruled the country for over a century. This duality, being both an insider and an outsider, would define her entire life. She was brilliant and ambitious. After studying economics at Harvard, she returned to Liberia and rose through the ranks, eventually becoming the nation's finance minister. But in 1980, her world exploded. A bloody military coup led by Master Sergeant Samuel Doe overthrew the government. The president was brutally murdered, and his cabinet was executed on a public beach. Sirleaf, one of the few ministers spared, was forced to flee into exile. You can already see the violence that shaped her, but her exile wasn't a retreat. It was a preparation. What I'm about to show you is how she went from a terrified exile to challenging the most feared warlord in Africa, Charles Taylor. Her initial support for him is the controversial secret that would haunt her presidency. From exile, Sirleaf became a vocal critic of Samuel Doe's brutal regime. In 1985, she courageously returned to run for vice president, only to be arrested and sentenced to 10 years of hard labor for sedition. International pressure secured her release, and she fled again. As Liberia descended into a horrific civil war, Sirleaf made a desperate gamble. She initially supported Charles Taylor, a notorious warlord leading the National Patriotic Front of Liberia against Doe. In her mind, he was the only one who could oust the dictator. This single decision would become her greatest political vulnerability. Taylor's forces were responsible for unspeakable atrocities. And while Sirleaf later distanced herself completely, her early association with him led Liberia's Truth and Reconciliation Commission to recommend, in 2009, that she be barred from public office for 30 years. Think about that for a second. The woman who would become a Nobel Peace Prize winner was accused by her own country's commission of aiding a war criminal. This recommendation was never implemented, but it casts a long, dark shadow over her legacy. This is the critical juncture. Sirleaf, a woman of intellect and international standing, made a deal with the devil to try and save her country. This moral tightrope walk transformed her from a politician into a figure of immense yet conflicted power. It reveals the impossible choices leaders face in desperate times. Her ability to survive, learn, and ultimately rise above these choices is what makes her story so compelling and so tragic. But wait, before we continue, there's a crucial detail often overlooked. While Sirleaf was making these difficult choices, a powerful, often unseen force was at work: the women of Liberia. Groups like the Women of Liberia Mass Action for Peace, led by the incredible Lama Jiboe, were actively protesting. Using non-violent tactics of a sex strike to force the warlords to the negotiating table. Their grassroots movement created the political space for Sirleaf to eventually emerge as a leader. Her rise wasn't just her own doing. It was built on the tireless, dangerous work of thousands of ordinary women. This collective power is the true untold story behind Liberia's peace. In 2005, after Charles Taylor went into exile, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf was elected president of Liberia, becoming the first ever democratically elected female head of state in Africa. She inherited a nation in ruins, a shattered infrastructure, a traumatized population, and a national debt of nearly $5 billion. Her task was monumental. She immediately focused on rebuilding. She secured massive debt relief from international partners, attracted foreign investment, and worked tirelessly to restore basic services. The lights came back on in the capital Monrovia for the first time in years. Clean water flowed again, and children returned to school. Her efforts earned her global acclaim, culminating in the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011, which she shared with Lema Gbowee and Tawakkol Carmen for their nonviolent struggle for the safety of women and their right to full participation in peace-building work. At this stage, you might think this is a perfect fairy tale ending. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Even with a Nobel Peace Prize, the challenges were immense and new controversies emerged. Her administration faced serious accusations of nepotism, with several of her sons and other family members holding key government positions. Critics pointed to a lack of progress on critical issues like sexual violence against women and a perceived failure to tackle deep-rooted corruption effectively. The Iron Lady was celebrated abroad, but at home, for many, disillusionment grew. For Liberians, the question isn't just about what she achieved, but what she couldn't achieve, or perhaps what she chose not to. Her second term was tragically marred by the devastating Ebola epidemic of 2014, which claimed thousands of lives and exposed the terrible fragility of Liberia's healthcare system. Sirleaf herself called it the lowest point of her presidency. Despite her efforts, the country struggled to fully recover from the blow. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf stepped down in 2018, marking the first time in decades that a democratically elected leader in Liberia peacefully transferred power to another. She left behind a country that was transformed, but still facing immense challenges. Her legacy is a paradox, a global symbol of hope and peace, yet criticized at home for corruption and failing to fully empower women. She proved that a woman could lead an African nation out of total collapse, but also that even the strongest leaders are fallible, and that the path to peace is rarely clean or simple. Her story is a powerful reminder that history is never black and white. It's a complex tapestry woven with courage, compromise, and the enduring struggle for a better future. So, what do you think of Ellen Johnson Sirleaf's legacy? Was she a hero who did what was necessary, or did her compromises tarnish her achievements? Share your thoughts in the comments below using the hashtag IronLadyLegacy. Also comment on which subject you want us to talk about in our next video. And if you want to explore more complex stories of African leaders who defied expectations, wait. Many of our viewers aren't subscribed to the channel, and if you are one of them, please hit that subscribe button to help support the channel. It means everything for us. Thanks for watching.